Welcome to Voices of the Plaza, the podcast, hosted by Peggy MacArthur. This is where we amplify stories of empowerment, innovation, and success from the heart of the Global Business Plaza. Each week, Peggy introduces us to one of the creative business people, entrepreneurs, and industry experts who are shaping their fields and redefining success. Together, we'll explore unique journeys, highlight remarkable expertise, and uncover the inspiration behind their success.
You ready?
Welcome to Voices of the Plaza, and we're doing something different today. We are in person together in the same little place, not in two separate circles. So welcome, my friend Aisla.
It's so good to see you
And
in person.
Yes, and Aisla is also a member of the Global Business Plaza, and she has an amazing business. So before you tell us all about your business, Aisla, tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you to the business that you're doing now.
Oh, thank you. That's I'll tell you a truncated version of that. And Vicarian Consulting is my business, and I work with entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and solopreneurs, helping them to make their business work for them, building systems and strategies for ease. And I started my professional journey as a nonprofit executive director with some small grassroots nonprofits. And you know how that is. You always have to do more with less. And that's also kind of how I go anyway. And when I left that, I realized that I wanted to keep doing that, but on a larger scale. Instead of working with just one company, I wanted to be able to help multiple people achieve their goals without feeling super drained. Because that's something that happens a lot in the nonprofit world is people burn out, fall over, and leave. And we lose all of that knowledge and relationships. And so I really wanted to find a way to bring that knowledge that I had of creating sustainable businesses in that environment to more people. And so that's where Vicarian started.
So you just help nonprofits?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I help creative entrepreneurs. So I actually mostly work with for-profit businesses at this point. And, but I do work with some nonprofits as well.
Okay. So when did it tell us what Vicarian is? Let's start there. Tell us what Vicarian is, because that's a really interesting name.
Okay.
And tell us what it is and what you actually do.
So I made Vicarian from Epicurean, which is a philosophical perspective. It's sort of the idea of being in the sensations of life, experiences. And then I put bi in front of it because I feel like we are messy humans and individuals, and you need to meet in that place of your experiences. So in the world, I feel like a lot of times people end up believing that they have to give things up. So once again, as an entrepreneur, I never get to sleep. I never get to see my family. And I don't think that's true. I think you get to have both. In fact, I don't just think you get to, I think you have to if you're going to sustain yourself in what you're doing. So that's kind of the philosophy of Vicarian. And then I bring that into everything that I do in the work that I have. Did I answer your whole question?
You did.
Okay,
you
good.
did. I mean, I'm going to keep going deeper because I still think people are like, yeah, but what does she do?
But what do I do?
Yeah.
But what do I do?
Yeah, but what do you do?
I help people get into how to manage their resources more effectively. And when I say resources, most business owners think of time and money because they're very concrete and obviously very important. However, in addition to that, there's your creative energy, there's your relationships, there's your inspiration, and there's your motivation. And so I firmly believe and have seen over and over again that when business owners, and this applies actually in life and also when you're working for someone, my focus happens to be business owners, but let's say you neglect your creative energy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who aren't creatives, like you're a creative, you do mm-hmm. photography and stuff, but even if you aren't specifically a creative, you still have creative energy that you use. And if you neglect how you replenish that and you don't understand how you replenish it, then you're going to go to solve that problem or create that spreadsheet and realize, your brain just can't get there because you've neglected the resource of you. And that to me is a really important thing. We live in a society that encourages us to, in my opinion, exploit ourselves for our success. And it turns out it doesn't matter who's doing the exploiting, it still has a negative effect.
Very, very good point. Because whether you're working in corporate America and you're feeling like you're being exploited, or if you have your own business and you're actually exploiting yourself for your own success, that's still yeah, it's still yeah, exactly. It's still a bad thing. So basically, if I understand it right, you help people really map out where their resources are coming from, how to take care of them, how to value them, and not just give, and not just, whether it's money, just like, oh, I got to buy this, I got to, I got to invest in this, I got to invest in this, but really figuring out where all the balance is and kind of getting a direction to run a thriving, successful business. Is that, did I sum that up pretty good?
I'm going to take you on the road. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm hired.
You're definitely hired. Yeah. Well, and that feeling of, exactly. So like, let's say if you don't know you have creative energy when you're doing your problem solving, and then you draw on it without replenishing it, or you ignore it, then you won't be able to do the thing that you're best at. And so it's about noticing it and then noticing how you replenish it, which I feel like it's similar to, you hear the old trope of, partners get drawn on, right? Like, I'm working 1 million hours, my partner has to do everything. Thinking about it in that way, you have to replenish that relationship. You can't just take from it, or they're going to dump you, hopefully, because they have some self-respect, and move on. So it's the same thing. Your creative energy kind of dumps you if you don't take care of it. And so just understanding how to value your whole self in your process.
So we were talking a lot about creative energy, and I know some people out there think, well, I don't, I'm not that. I don't have a creative brain. I don't have creative energy. But we all have all the energies. We are all a whole person, and we have all these things, and we may express our creativity in spreadsheets. Exactly. We may express our creativity, in different ways. But understanding that, you kind of help people understand, what self-care is. Like, one of my pet peeves when people are like, what do you do for self-care, Peggy? Because I feel like the only right answer that they want to hear is that I went to the spa, or I went to the beach for the day. And those aren't things that replenish me.
No, exactly. And it has to be something that replenishes you.
And so,
because it's your energy.
Exactly. And so we're so used to these rules of how, what society says replenishes us, and what society says success is, and what society says. But you kind of help people define, actually look at you, and what do you want in life, and what makes you happy, and what's going to make you be on full instead of on empty, so that you can actually go out and do the things. Yeah.
And it's like, if it matters to you today, it's going to matter to you tomorrow. So part of how you deal with today has to include being able to deal with tomorrow. And I think that there's a lot of suffering that's optional. There's some that's not. We have to deal with it. That's the way it is. And there's a lot of suffering that we create for ourselves by neglecting to think about our needs in the future, or, like you said, what actually replenishes you, as opposed to what people tell you is supposed to work for you.
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking, so for example, I have a podcast. That's how we met, Business as Unusual. And it doesn't make me any money. And it's not, I've gotten clients through it. So I guess in that way, indirectly it has. And I'm really committed to it. And it takes a lot of my time and energy. And from a purely time, money, resource perspective, it's 100% the first thing that should go. However, from a motivation, fulfillment, energy, relational, I met great people through it, all of that, it's 100% absolutely a core part of my business and what makes my business thrive. And I think that's what I mean when I say I want people to consider the whole spectrum of resources. Now, if I had several projects like that were really satisfying, but didn't return anything financially, or didn't make it my time, didn't do something to organize my time more productively, then that's not okay. That's just as bad as having things be all a ton, money return, but no satisfaction. Both of those will actually lead to burnout, and burnout is fully preventable. And especially if you're doing a sort of an evaluation of what you have going on, you can prevent it by saying, oh, it looks like I only have things that bring me fulfillment, but nothing that brings me money. Okay, that's a problem.
Mhm.
I only have things that bring me money, but I don't have anything that brings me fulfillment. Also a problem. You want a balance.
And balance, and balance doesn't mean 50-50. Balance
No.
means what, I mean, it could be just, hey, one day a week you take an hour and do
Mhm.
that thing. For me in photography,
Mhm.
I love photography. I love taking
Mhm.
images like that. It is great. But when it's for money and it's part of my job, it gets mundane, just like whatever it is that you
Mhm.
do. Like if you're, whether you're a CPA or a photographer, when you're doing that thing for money, it becomes a task. And so what I would have to do is every few months I would notice I'm like, yeah, just really like don't want to look at my camera. And then I would go out and go for a hike or go do something that's like not for money, go learn a new task or go learn something. And Happy here wants to
be
say
part of
hi.
my
Yeah.
show.
Anyway, but yeah, so that's
Mhm.
really, really good to
And I think
really
that's
think
great
about.
advice
Mhm.
too. Like you can do something you love for work and how you do it can matter. So I shared this story on my podcast recently. And my dad likes to tell the story about my mother's father. And I realized recently that thinking that I have around resources is very much traceable. He was an engineer and a consultant. He flew all over the country to help people, businesses with productivity and difficult problems. And my dad loves this story. My grandfather was touring this silver refining company. And as he was walking through the processing floor with the group of people that worked there, he looked over and he said, if you switch this step and do it before this step, you'll save on your silver. And I thought nothing of it and left. And a few months later, he received a check for in the tens of thousands of dollars because that company had an employee rewards program. And if you made it a suggestion that saved them money or made them money, you got some percentage of what was saved. And the employee that he was walking with told them they did it, and it literally saved them like something times tens of thousands of dollars. And this isn't like the 60s, right?
Wow.
And it's the same thing with your resources. When I look at people and what they're doing, the order that they do things in, the time they do things, the things that they're doing, the ways they replenish themselves, a lot of times people feel like they don't have enough time, money, energy. And I'm not going to say that isn't true sometimes. So if that's true for you, I'm not talking to you, by the way. Sometimes you don't have enough, you don't have enough. However, for a lot of us, it's actually that we're not using those resources that we have strategically. We're not replenishing them. We're exploiting ourselves and extracting from ourselves instead of honoring our needs. Like I love that story that you told me about going to take pictures. Like you're still taking pictures, but you're doing it in a way that replenishes yourself and your joy in this thing. And to me too, and we talked about this, like if you're running your own business, there's a lot of freedom to it. And there can be a lot of joy. And there are absolutely times when, yeah, I'm up until midnight dealing with a crisis because it's on me. I'm responsible. I'm accountable. However, I also get to do things like work here for some time and get to see a person that I enjoy in real life. And we get to go out. And I love the freedom that I have. I'm willing to trade, 9 to 5 hours for that. That's not important. And I think that's the other thing too, is for some people, the 9 to 5 is really the better choice. That's what they want. They want the predictability. Mm-hmm. And for those that it isn't, we have to divest ourselves from thinking about our work in the same way that we thought about the 9 to 5.
Exactly, because owning your own business is not the same as working for someone else. It's just not. There's every single aspect of it, and I know that that's a pitfall that a lot of people fall into. Like, oh, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to run my own business because I'm really good at this one thing and I love this one thing. But what they don't realize is at their business, they had a marketer, they had an accountant, they had, a PR person, they had HR, they had all the things.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that's on you. So not understanding how to put those things in order can be completely overwhelming. But what you do is really help like, hey, it's not that overwhelming if you just have a process and a way of doing that. And you help people figure out, because it's not the same for everybody.
It's very personalized.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Because, we're all, anybody that's been around me knows my neurodivergence. And, we all have our own ways of thinking and the way we look at the world and the way we do things that are easy for us and, complicated. But you really help people find that groove to really get them in there. And the other thing that I just want to mention, because this is like, I know that, yes, there is a time when you don't have enough time and you don't have enough money, but always remember, those are things you can make.
Mm-hmm.
You can make money and you can make time. So they're not a finite resource that you can run out of. They are something you can make. So when you make the time in an organized way, that's, when you're doing things, instead of doing this first, you do this first, all of a sudden, boom, you have more time. Mm-hmm. You just made time. And so that's kind of the beauty in that I see in what you do. Now, I used to, everything that I do now because I sucked at it and failed at it in the past. Like, one of the guys in the Global Business Plaza says, "Oh, Peggy's pro tips," and I'm like, "Oh, those could be just tagged Peggy's failures recapped."
I think often we solve the problems we need to, like, usually the people that we're helping are a version of where we were at some point,
exactly.
Right?
So tell us a time when you sucked at this.
Oh my gosh, sucked at managing resources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I will say that I have always been pretty good at that. I had to learn it very young. In terms of business, though, I would say that putting things in the right order. Like, for a long time, I really struggled to put my priorities first. So I would put everything else first. And I actually noticed it when my kids were younger, because I realized that, like, there were things I wanted to do for them and with them, and I kept not getting to them. And so I took a step back and I was like, well, does that mean I actually don't want to do this? Or am I lying to myself? Is showing up for them not actually important to me? Which is a horrible thing to ask yourself. But I was like, my behavior suggests I'm not prioritizing these things. And I realized, like, oh no, I feel like those are things for me. So I don't feel like I get to put them first. And so I made a very conscious effort to switch that in terms of saying, okay, what do I do to create that this is first, because it is actually the thing that's most important to me, but I am not behaving that way. And it changed something for me when I realized that I was allowed to do that. And I will say there's times when I still struggle, where I think, oh, I'm really going to like this. I think it's going to be really good for me. And so I think, well, I'll have to do that later. And really and truly, every time that I notice that and overcome it, things work out so much differently than I would have expected. And by differently, I mean better. Even sometimes when there's a challenge to it, the fulfillment process is higher. And I think it's actually why I was better at prioritizing the Business is Unusual podcast, because I realized that even though it was for me, and technically it didn't, have this traditional income process, it was so motivating and so fulfilling that it was helpful. But that's been a consistent and conscious choice, is doing things in the right order and recognizing that putting my priorities first is the right order.
And that's a really good point. I once took a photo session on Christmas Day. Now, hear me out.
No, I feel both parts of it. I do. I feel both parts of it, because I can totally imagine doing something like that. And I can also imagine how horrible it would feel.
Well, I in my mind, the kids get up early, they open their Christmas presents, we eat breakfast, and then the kids don't care about parents after that. They're playing with their new toys. And, they were still young. And I thought, I could do a big family shoot in the afternoon on Christmas. Like, they won't even know I'm gone.
They won't even know.
They won't even know. That was over 20 years ago. And I still get this. Oh, are you working this Christmas? Are you going to join us for the full day, Mom? It was 1:30 3-hour,
Are you going to join us
Yeah.
for the full? I mean, kids are so, they
Yeah.
get you, right?
Yeah. And it's been well over 20 years, and that will still pop up from time to time.
Mhm.
And that was like such a, a real awakening to me of like, because, money was a real priority at that time
Yeah.
because we didn't have a lot. And so
Yeah.
in my mind, I could do both. I'm like, hey, I got this. But either I didn't communicate it well to where they felt comfortable, or, who knows what happened. But yeah, that's still like, that's a thing that still gets kind of like brought up to me. And we all as business, business people, we have to make these decisions. I mean, I worked a lot of nights and evenings, but also I never missed any of my kids' little league games.
Yeah.
I never missed doctor's appointments or, things like that. So, it is a balancing act, but you have to figure out what is priority and how to communicate those to your family. Because I think of course, my kids, were younger at the time. And so I probably didn't think that I should sit down and tell them how excited I was to spend Christmas morning with them and how I was going to go out so we could have, it didn't occur to me to spend that time explaining why I justified it. And literally 26 years probably ago. And, and so, those are things that communication is part of being able to take care of your resources, is being able to communicate and flow through that. So I think what you do is really exciting. And you didn't mention it, but you really, you map things and you really, so.
Help people map, like I call it business cartography. I help people map their business ecosystem. And I realized that first we have to start with how you replenish. And I want to say too, like the other part of that story that I find interesting is that we often don't value or notice that, I don't know how to describe it, sort of that quiet time, right? Like I felt like, my kids, when they were younger, they wanted me around so they could ignore me. But if I wasn't there, and sometimes your business needs that, it needs you around so it can ignore you. It's not a great metaphor, but it's that same thing of there are times when you don't feel like you're doing anything because we're very productivity focused, and actually you're building a relationship, you're learning something, you're connecting in a way that's helpful. And because we're so very like one action to the next, we forget that there's like that space for things to grow, and it's not as active. Like you have to tend it and nurture it, and then let it kind of build its own. I call it sometimes back brain time. Like if I sit and like I'm on a problem, I might not solve it. But if I really focus on it and then I go for a walk and I come back, suddenly the answer has magically appeared. Well, it didn't. I did something back here.
Right.
I don't know what it was.
Right. I'm a 3 a.m. kind of a person.
Yeah.
I sleep with a notebook by my bed because that's when I solve all of the world's problems.
Nice.
Yeah. 3 a.m.
I'm glad somebody's solving them.
Yes. I wake up, and this started in childhood. Like I would be like, how come I can't get that math problem at school? And I would wake up and so there is something to that. Just letting your brain do its thing. Like, okay, you've done all your stuff. You've thought about it. You've done everything you can. Just shush.
Yeah.
Shh.
Just let this happen.
Let your brain do the thing.
So first we do resources. We can just do mapping. They call it foundational cartography to kind of get a sense of what flows into what. And I think it is very helpful, but I feel like the mapping really does rest on you having a sense of how you work and how you flow so that we can work from there. Because you already know, if you're running a business, there's a bunch of stuff that's already working. So instead of trying to make things up, let's notice what is working and then just build on it a little bit so that it can scale and move into that next phase. And speaking of the plaza, I'm doing sort of working sessions on these different topics most Thursdays. So if you go to my shop in the plaza, you can find my Luma calendar and sign up to come in. They're all titled this. Actually, I'm doing one today called Ditch the Hustle. And it's a great place to come in. It's to get a chance. Plaza members get a lower price, of course, because we love our Plaza members.
But
Yeah.
to be clear, your price is very low to start with.
It is. These are just like $15, $17 drop in. It's not meant to be a high ticket item at all.
So I think what a lot of people feel is like, oh my God, I just can't get to this next stage, or nothing's working. But there are a lot of things working.
Yeah, there's a ton working.
And it's usually just like that little, like, it's not working because it's just that tiny adjustment. And then once you make that tiny adjustment, then it can start working again.
Yeah.
And I think that's, a lot of times people, I know myself, I get frustrated with myself. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything right at all. And it's not doing anything right. It's doing that one little move. And then it's like, oh, all these things just started working.
And it just falls into place.
It falls right into place. So I think that's the beauty of having people that can see the way your brain works. You can be like, oh, just like your grandfather, your grandfather, just like your grandfather's like, oh, that saved you a lot of time. Just change that order of that. And when you're in front of it, like your business is, you sometimes don't see those little things, or your brain doesn't work that way. And you need somebody to tell you, hey, let's just trade this around, and just know that if you're not where you want to be in your business, it doesn't mean that you're failing. It just means you need a little help, because none of us were meant to do things alone.
That's true. We're not.
And when you get that other perspective, a lot of times that shines that light on it and really like lets you move forward. So, and I think you're good at that. Yeah, you're really good at that. I was actually in your meeting last Thursday, and I got a spanking. But it was good. It was good. It was with love. It was with love. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So let me just tell people a little bit easier way to find you. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I will allow it.
Go to the globalbusinessplaza.com, and your business is actually like top left corner, right up there. You're the very first business you see. But if you go all the way to the bottom of the plaza, you'll see the directory, and in the directory is a fancy little tab that says events. And this one right here is good at putting events up. So go to those events, and that is the best and easiest way to find you. And if you go to either your room or to your profile in the directory, they can set up an appointment with you, and you'll talk to them and let them know if you guys might be a right fit. Yeah. But definitely come hang out with us on Thursdays and see what magic Aisla can sprinkle on your business, because that's kind of what you do. You just kind of sprinkle magic. Yeah,
you've already got it all figured out. You just don't know it sometimes, and that's true for everybody. We all find someone to help us go from here to there by letting us see things that were pretty obvious, but for some reason we were overlooking.
Right.
I mean, I feel like every time someone really, that's the thing is, I feel like every time someone really does help me, and it's really spot on, I sort of want to facepalm and be like, what? That's so obvious.
That. It's so obvious.
But that's usually when you know they've really, really nailed it.
Yeah. What's your one tip you want to leave everybody with today?
Oh.
The one final tip.
My one final tip is trust yourself. You've got this. Anybody that thinks they're selling you the answer or acts like they're selling you the answer, run, because they don't have the answer. They just want to exploit an insecurity you're dealing with.
Boom, right there. That's why I hate follow these steps and you'll have the same success as I had, because that's not possible, because the way you define success is different than the way I define success. My issues are different than your issues. My clients are different than your clients. So there is no step by step. No. But there is processes, and there are principles, and there are laws that you can follow to. Yeah. This was so fun.
It was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's so cool that we're together in person in real life. Okay, fantastic. Guys, I will see you next Thursday at Voices of the Plaza.
Bye, everybody.